This presentation is an Indian or Vedic remedy recommended by astrologers for Saturn transits, especially the 7.5-year Sade Sati period. It can be used for any of the transits. I have adapted this from Dr. Robert Swoboda's book, The Greatness of Saturn. First, a quick prayer to Lord Ganesha to remove obstacles, and then a quick mantra for Shani. The mantra for Shani can be repeated any number of times for those undergoing problems with Saturn. Om Gananam Tva Ganapatim Havamahe Kapin Kapinam Upamashramastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Anshunvannuti Siddhi Sadhanam Om Shri Mahaganadipate Namaha. For Shani, the mantra is Om Sham Shanischaraya Namaha. Why do Vedic astrologers recommend remedies, especially for Saturn? Because, as it says here, like stepping out of the way of an oncoming truck and experiencing perhaps only a moment's fear while being spun around by the wind in its wake, understanding Shani's power is a means in itself to avoiding its worst ravages. So you can listen to this recording as many times as you like, especially on Saturdays, and hopefully this will avoid Shani's worst ravages. A quick couple of things to set the stage for Saturn. It is the giver of the fruit of your karma, so that's why it puts you through difficulties. Shani is depicted on a crow or a raven and represents the afterlife. Dark-hued, so wearing black on Saturdays is favorable. Saturday is the day, hence Saturday is favorable. This remedy can be used for the 7.5-year Sade Sati, those who are familiar with the Sade Sati in Indian astrology, or any Saturn transit for that matter, especially when it's to the moon. A couple of the things that Saturn rules are old age related diseases, rheumatic pains, nervous disorders, arthritis, osteoporosis, depression. Shani demands pasina doya arzu, tumari marzi, meaning either sweat or tears. So you can either sweat it out, meaning work really hard, go to the gym, but work really hard in your life, or you will end up crying through the Shani phase. It's your choice. Delay or denial, that will depend upon your karma. The things that Shani can cause and why we specifically recommend remedies for Shani is because it causes depression, self-doubt, deficit of trust, downsizing, obsession with perfection. And what we need at this time is we need to open up a window to reality, because Shani covers up all of our windows with mirrors that reflect back Shani's reality, which is very depressing and dark. So this remedy will open up those windows and replace the mirrors that Shani puts in its place. From here on starts a remedy of the Shani Mahatmya. This is the story of King Vikramaditya, who is in Ujjaini in India. While we go through the story, please remember that the story tries to convey that everybody is subjected to Saturn's suffering, but we all seek relief, and listening to the story and believing in it and trusting in it is what will bring us some relief. So King Vikramaditya's court has a lot of courtiers, and King Vikramaditya asks for his courtiers to extol the different virtues of all the different planets, which they do, and they go through all the planets one by one. After they've finished their lecture, King Vikramaditya comments that Saturn is the worst of all the planets because even his parents, Saturn's own parents, did not escape the ravages of Saturn. Now, King Vikramaditya is a just, kind, and beloved king, and well loved by everyone, known to be a wonderful ruler. But Saturn, who happens to be passing by, takes this as arrogance and disrespect. So one thing to remember during the Saturn transits is do not be arrogant, do not disrespect. So Saturn happened to be ready for the 7.5-year transit over King Vikramaditya's moon and happened to go by. So he seeks to humble King Vikramaditya just as he seeks to humble all of us. So he tells King Vikramaditya that soon he will enter his Shani phase or the Saturn phase, upon which immediately there is a gloom and melancholy that sets in on King Vikramaditya. Now, when Shani leaves and King Vikramaditya worries about this, his priest advises him to do some remedies for Shani. King Vikramaditya refuses to do the remedies for Shani. Now, this is another learning for us, because if we have to do remedies, we must have faith in them for them to work, and if we do not have faith, they do not work. So King Vikramaditya at that point, because he's already beset by melancholy, does not want to do any of the remedies and hence has to undergo the full spectrum of ravages of Shani. The next day, Saturn appears at Ujjaini dressed as a horse merchant, and he entices King Vikrama with beautiful horses. King Vikrama decides to try one of the horses. He mounts the horse and he rides away into the forest, where he's thrown over by the horse and he becomes completely lost. The citizens of Ujjaini are not able to find him, and they think their king is lost forever. King Vikrama, meanwhile, has arrived in the city of Tamilalinda, but does not know where he is. He goes to a merchant's store and he sits down in front of it. The merchant tried to help King Vikrama because he thinks that he might make a good prospective match for his daughter Alolika. So he brings him home, gives him food and refreshments. At night, when King Vikrama is sleeping, Alolika tries to test him. So she tries to wake him up, but King Vikrama knows that she should not trust any appearances during Saturn's period. So he tries to just stay asleep or pretend to be asleep. While this is happening, Saturn plays another trick on him, and Alolika's necklace, pearl necklace, goes missing. Now King Vikrama is blamed for this. The merchant brings King Vikrama to King Chandrasena, the ruler of Tamilalinda. King Chandrasena and the merchant declare him to be a thief. So another learning here is, during Saturn's period, even a king can be reduced to a thief. The part that we should understand is when even a king such as a good and kind king such as King Vikrama, while undergoing the ravages of Saturn, can be subjected to tortures, we should just not be arrogant, keep our heads down, and get through Saturn's period. Now the wrath of Saturn continues because King Vikrama is beaten blue and back. His arms and legs are chopped off, and he is left on the outskirts without food or water for a month. So in this way, Saturn tortures King Vikrama, and the lesson being that Saturn is trying to make him suffer until the lesson is learned. So King Vikrama accepts his torture at this point. After a month or so of no water and no food, the citizens of Tamilalinda decide to feed and provide water to King Vikrama, and slowly his strength regains. Saturn is pleased with the way King Vikrama is handling his suffering. So now we see a little turn in the story, and a woman from Ujjaini happens to be passing by. She sees King Vikrama and recognizes her king. She is distraught to find her king in such dire circumstances. She wants to help him. King Vikrama refuses the help and says that he must undergo Saturn's suffering and does not want to get the woman involved. However, the woman will have none of it and takes him home to her father-in-law, who is an oil merchant. So here we see when the suffering is accepted, Saturn has reduced the suffering somewhat. The oil merchant, though he is afraid of the king, he decides to give him a job as a oil presser in his business, which is what King Vikrama gratefully accepts. So like this, he is pressing out oil for about 2 years or so. Many years go by, and King Vikrama starts to sing. He is a skilled musician, and when he sings the Raga Deepika, all of the lights in Tamilalinda go on, and then when he stops singing Raga Deepika, all the lights go off. It attracts the attention of Princess Padmasena, who was King Chandrasena's daughter. She takes a liking to the singing. She asks for the singer to be brought to her palace. So there, King Vikrama starts singing for Princess Padmasena. So rather than being with the oil merchant, now he's at a palace singing to Princess Padmasena on a daily basis. After a while, Princess Padmasena wants to marry him. But again, here King Vikrama is very suspicious of Saturn and what Saturn has in his mind. So he decides to keep a low profile and wants to just finish up his 7.5-year period, which is slowly drawing to a close. So the king and queen of Tamilalinda are very upset with Princess Padmasena and her choice in a marriage partner. However, what they don't know is we're getting towards the end of the Saturn transit period, and this is the end of the wrath of Saturn. So Saturn appears to King Vikrama and is very happy with his attitude, with his acceptance of the suffering. And when Saturn leaves, Saturn usually leaves a gift. And we shall see how this happens in King Vikrama's case. And while we're undergoing Saturn's transit, this is something for us to keep in mind as well. As long as we've been responsible, as long as we've put in the sweat, whatever the sweat may mean to us, then Saturn will leave a gift at the end of the transit. So Saturn asks King Vikrama to choose a gift, whatever he may want. But King Vikrama instead gives us the gift. He says anyone who is going through the Saturn transit should not be troubled by Saturn the same way that he was, and they should be spared the ravages of Saturn. So here we can see he is being humble and he's thinking about others who've gone through this phase, which makes Saturn even more happy with King Vikrama. So he restores his arms and legs, restores the splendor of King Vikrama, restores his fortunes, and also provides him Princess Padmasena in marriage. So here King Vikramaditya has not only regained, but he has doubled all of his losses during the Saturn period. So this is something for us to think about while we're going through the difficult phase of Saturn, is at the end of it, as long as we've been patient and we need to keep a cheerful attitude, we're waiting for the time to pass, have concern for others who are going through similar miseries, be humble, and don't have any ego, Saturn will leave a gift for us. So we just have to keep the sweat going and keep working hard, and the end will come. Other lessons to take away from Saturn's period are Saturn usually wants us to take on responsibility. So people often get married, have children, take on a new job, things like that during a Saturn period. So for instance, if someone is living in their parents' basement and does not want to take on the responsibility of paying for a mortgage or paying for rent, when they take on that responsibility, they get the fruit of that responsibility, which is having greater freedom to do the things that they want. So things that we've been avoiding, let's take on those responsibilities, is Saturn's mantra, because if you do, then there will be a greater reward waiting for you at the end. Saturn also tells a story to King Vikrama about how his guru tried to escape his wrath and how he failed. And the moral of that story is even the guru of Saturn, who had asked for a 2.5-hour period of Saturn's wrath, could not avoid all of the ravages of Saturn's wrath. So rather than trying to avoid it, it's better to accept it and work through it as cheerfully as we can. And the only thing that will help is the remedies, which will lessen the effect of Saturn's hardships. There are several other remedies that are listed here, including the mantra, including what kinds of charities, services, things that we can do to appease Saturn. So you can take a moment to read through those, and if any of these appeal to you, please do them. One cannot mention Saturn and remedies without mentioning Hanuman also in the same breath. Hanuman is the monkey god, the son of Anjana and the wind god, and he has a special relationship to Saturn, and devotees of Hanuman are said to be spared the worst of Saturn's difficulties. He's a devotee of Lord Ram, and saying the Hanuman Chalisa is also considered to be an extremely effective remedy. The main key being that Hanuman is the ideal servant of Lord Ram, and as long as he's in the service of others, he is able to help and get rid of Saturn's afflictions. In the same way, when we are in service of others, we are able to reduce the effects of Saturn. There was a story about how Ravana imprisoned all of the planets, and Hanuman helps rescue Saturn. So because of his rescue of Saturn, all of the devotees of Hanuman are spared the worst effects of Saturn. Here is a pretty fast version of the Hanuman Chalisa. Shri Guru Charana Saroj Raje, Nijmana Mukra Sudhari, Bharanav Ragabal Bimala Jasu, Jodayak Palachari. Buddhihina Tanu Janiki He, Sumiro Pavana Kumar, Balabuddhi Vidya Dehu Mohi, Haro Kalesh Bikar. जय हनुमान ज्ञान गुण सागर जय कपीसित न लोक उजागर रामदूत अतुलित बलदामा अंजनी पुत्र पवन सुत नामा महावीर विक्रम बजरंगी कुमति निवार सुमति के संगी कंचन बरण बिराज सुबेशा कानन कुंडल कुंचित केशा हाथ वज्र और ध्वजा बिराजे कांजे मूंज जनेऊ साजे शंकर सुवन केसरी नंदन तेज प्रताप महाजगबंदन विद्यावान गुणी अति चातुर राम काज करिबे को आतुर प्रभु चरित्र सुनिबे को रसिया राम लखन सीता मन बसिया सूक्ष्म रूप धरि सिया दिखावा बिकट रूप धरि लंक जरावा भीम धूप धरि असुर सनारे रामचंद्र के काज सवारे लाए संजीवन लखन जियाई श्री रघुवीर हर्षि उर लाई रघुपति कीन्ही बहुत बड़ाई तुम मम प्रिय भरत संभाई सहस बदन तुम रोज गावे अस्करि श्रीपति कंठ लगावे सनकादिक ब्रह्मादि मुनीषा नारद शारद सहित अहिसा चमक बेर दिगपाल जहाते कवि को विद कहि सके तहाते तुम उपकार सुग्रीव ही कीन्हा राम मिलाय राजपत दीन्हा तुमरो मंत्र विभीषण माना लंकेश्वर भय सब जग जाना जुग सहस्र जो जन पर भानु लील्यो ताहि मधुर पल जानु प्रभु मुद्रिका मेले मुखि माही जल्दी लागी गए अचरज नाई दुर्गम काज जगत के जेते, सुग्रम अनुग्रह तुमरे तेते। राम दुआरे तुम रखवारे, होट न आज्ञा बिनु पैसारे। सब सुख लहे तुम्हारी शरणा, तुम रक्षक काहू को डरना। आपन तेज समारो आपे, तीनों लोग हांकते कांपे। भूत पिशाच निकट नहीं आवे, महावीर जब नाम सुनावे। नासे रोग हरे सब पीरा, जपत निरंतन हनुमत बीरा। संकट ते हनुमान छुड़ावे, मन क्रम बचन जान जो लावे। सब पर राम तपस्वी राजा, तिनके काज सकल तुम साजा। और मनोरथ जो कोई लावे, सोई अमित जीवन फल पावे। चारों जुग परताप तुम्हारा, है प्रसिद्ध जगत उजियारा। साधु संत के तुम रखवाले, असुर निकंदन राम दुलारे। अष्ट सिद्धि नौ निधि के दाता, असबर दीन जान की माता। राम रसायन तुमरे पासा, सदा रहो रघुपति के दासा। तुमरे भजन राम को पावे, जन्म जन्म के दुख बिसरावे। अंतकाल रघुबर पुर जाई, जहाँ जन्म हरि भक्त कहाई। और देवता चिट्ट न धरहि, हनुमत सही सर्व सुख करही। संकट कटे मिटे सब पीरा, जो सुमिरै हनुमत बलबीरा। जय 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 हनुमान गोसाई, कृपा करहु गुरुदेव की नाही। जो सत बार पाठ कर कोई, छूटहि बंदी महासुख होई। जो ये पढ़े हनुमान चालीसा, होय सिद्धि साखी गौरीसा। तुलसीदास सदा हरिचर्या, कीजय नाथ हृदय महाडेरा। पवन तनय संकट हरण, मंगल मूर्ति रूप। राम लखन सीता सहित, हृदय बसहु सुरभूप। सियावर रामचंद्र पर जय शरणम।